We have spent 6 weeks mastering the modern C# landscape, from primary constructors to magic of source generators. But the theory only gets you so far. Today, we stop practicing and start building. This is VectoDash, a clean, responsive weather intelligence dashboard built with Uno platform. It's one code base, one logic layer, and it runs everywhere. Here you can see on the left, you have the app running on Windows, and on the right, you can see the same app running on the web. So let's build this from scratch. To keep things lean, we are starting with blank template. This gives us a clean slate to implement our architecture, no boilerplate, just our code. So let's click on create a new project, select Uno platform. If you do not have these templates here, please check out my previous video where I have explained how to install Uno platform in Visual Studio. So moving ahead, let's click on next, give this project a name and click on create. You will soon see this Uno platform template wizard, and I will go ahead and click on this blank template to keep this solution clean and just remove all of these unnecessary frameworks and presentation layers. Of course, you can go with the recommended, but I want to keep the code clean and simple. So I will go ahead and select the blank preset and click on create. First, we need our data model. So here on my Solution Explorer, I will go ahead and add a new class and call it weather model. Before we create our class, let's first create a folder. So let's click on add new folder and call it models. And within our models, let's now click add and add a class and call it weather model. So let's click on add. I have the code ready, which will avoid typing all of this code. So I will go ahead and paste this code that I have, and I will explain what each of the code is. So here you can see our file scope namespace, which we discussed in our previous video, where it is not enclosing the whole code, but it is only limited to this scope. And here that is one of the C# feature that we discussed in our previous video. And here are the C# 12 record feature, which we also discussed in our previous video. So this makes our code look and work concise, and it is one line of code that defines our entire weather object with immutable properties. And this is the power of modern C#. And here you can see we have our first record, which is a weather response, which will capture the response from our API and populate these properties. And then you have the main stats, which will capture the properties like temperature and humidity. And then you have the weather description property or the record, which will capture the properties of description and the icon. So our model is now ready. Next is the logic layer, which is the service and the view models. For the brain of the app, which are the service and view models, we need a weather service that handles the API calls using HTTP client, and we also need a view model. So let's start by creating our service. So first I will go to Solution Explorer, right click and add another folder and call it services. And within services, I will go ahead and add a new class called weather service. Similar to the previous exercise, I already have the code ready for the weather service. I'll go ahead and paste it, and I will explain you what the code is. So here you can see our weather service class, which has this read-only HTTP client property. And here you can see a asynchronous method called getWeatherAsync, which takes in the parameter called city, and based on that value provided, it will query the API and pass the city to the API, and the API will return a response with the details of the weather. Here you can also see we have the API that has to be generated on the website. You can go to Open Weather Maps API and generate your own API key and use it to work on this weather app. So this is our weather service. Next, we need our view model. and the real magic actually happens in our view model. So we will be using the community toolkit.mvvm and the source generators, which we talked about in our previous video. So let's start by creating our view model. And here I will go ahead and click on add and create a new folder and call it view models. And inside this folder, I will go ahead and add another class and call this class main view model and click on add. Now we have our class. So like we discussed in our previous video, we need to use the power of source generators. We first need to include the NuGet package. So let's go to tools, NuGet package manager, manage NuGet package, and search for MVVM and select the first option, which is the community toolkit.mvvm, and select your project and click on install, apply and accept. Once the installation is complete, you should see this installed package in this install tab. You can close this tab, and now next thing is you need to make this class as partial. That is the first thing. And also you'll have to inherit from the observable object. We need some of the libraries, so let me copy those libraries also and paste it here above our namespace. And now you have the right libraries to inherit these observable objects. So now within our class, I will add some code that will create some read-only variables and some properties that we will use in our UI. So, or we will be binding to our UI. So I will go ahead and paste this code. So the first one is the weather service, which we will be using. The next one is the city name, and the default value is London. And this city name property will be bound to our text box on the UI. And this is decorated with this observable property. And once we decorate our properties with our variables with these properties, the source generators will kick in and they will generate the code. So we need not write all of the property handling these properties and their notifications. MVVM toolkit and the source generators will take care of this. So like I said, after decorating all of these properties, the weather response, the is busy, and the fetch weather function, the async task, which is a relay command, and this will be bound to our button. And this relay command will call the get weather async and provide the city name and fetch the response and populate this weather data property, and we will use this weather data property to populate the UI. So here let me save this, and once we have done this, you will see if I go to dependencies, let me go to dependencies, xtop, analyzers. Under analyzers you should have source generators, and if you scroll down, now you should see here the observable property, and here you have our view model and main view model. And if you double click on this, you should see all our properties and their property change event handlers and all of that. So here you can see our city name, next is the weather data. All of this code is auto generated by our source generators, and we have to just make use of these property decorators on the properties, and the MVVM toolkit and the source generators will take care of all of this. So this we did discuss in our previous video, so I will not go into the details of this. And let me go back to the code over here, and this is our view model. And now we will next move to the visuals, that would be the XAML and the converters. So I will now go to the Solution Explorer, and under this I have the main page.xaml. I will make a few changes to my UI. So I have the code ready. So I will go ahead and copy the code for my UI. So a dashboard needs to look premium, and we are using a centered stack panel with a semi-transparent background and rounded corners. To handle the UI states like showing a loading bar when fetching data, we will be using value converters, and this will allow our XAML to stay dumb and reactive, simply reflecting the states of our view model. So here you can see for the first thing that is enclosing our stack panel is a grid, and our stack panel is centering everything into a window. So we have vertical alignment to center, horizontal alignment to center, and some spacing and max widths assigned. And we are also having a header which is also enclosed in the stack panel, which encloses this text blocks. And then if you scroll down, you can see we have the search bar, and the search bar is bound to this city name, which we have a property in our view model, and which is set to London by default. So when we set a new value in this text box, the update source trigger, the property change event handler will be executed, and it will notify the property that the value has changed, and the new value or the updated data will be fetched from the API. So again, then we have the button next to the text box, which is a search button, and the command property is bound to this fetch weather command, and it is a relay command that will trigger the API and fetch the data. Next, we have the loading indicators, which is a progress bar, and it has this converter, which is a visibility converter, and it will convert back the value and show the appropriate loading indicator in the progress bar. Next, we have the result card, where we have a stack panel, and it is bound to this weather data, which is the response from our API. And we also have a converter, null to visibility converter. And then you have a text block, which is bound to the weather data city name. And next we have the stack panel, which includes the temperature, and it is bound to weather data.main.temperature. Similarly, we have the weather description fetched from the weather data. And finally, we have the extra details grid, which shows you the humidity and other details from the weather data object. Finally, we have the footer, which has this search for a city to see the weather text block. And that is all we have for our UI. Of course, you will not be having a designer here to see the data or to see the design that we have here in XAML. So to do that, let's save this application, and let's run this application for the first time. So for the first time, I will just go and change here to the desktop and run this application, and let's see how this application behaves. So here is the moment of truth. On Windows, it feels like a native desktop app, snappy and integrated. So here we have the city name, and when I click on search, you can see the current temperature in Celsius and also the humidity and the condition. So, but with a single click, we can deploy this same code to the browser. So I will go ahead and close this, change the deployment to WebAssembly, and click on deploy. And here you can see the same version on the web. It's the same C# logic and XAML running via the WebAssembly. This is why we spent the last 6 weeks learning these specific tools. VectoDash proves that with modern C# and the UNO platform, the barrier to build professional apps has never been lower. You have the code, you have the architecture. Next week, we are moving into phase 2, where we'll do cloud interactions, and I will see you there. For those who haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. It means a lot. It motivates me to create more such videos. Till then, bye-bye.